Welcome back to another session. I look back at a lot of my episodes before I do an episode to make sure that I haven't said the same thing before, at least a lot of it. Of course, I repeat a lot of positions. And this one I've written about, but I have not done a podcast on. So it's definitely a timely topic, and it's definitely an emotionally charged financial topic. And that is when facts feel political. How do our emotions distort financial truth? And I wade into this topic with a little bit of hesitation, because this is such an emotionally charged topic in certainly the United States of America, in a way that I have never witnessed in my lifetime. I'd like to say that money doesn't care who you voted for. We've talked about money's neutral. Money just is. Money isn't good. Money isn't bad. So money doesn't care who you voted for, but our emotions about money often do. As a financial advisor, and more recently as a financial therapist, I've spent decades helping clients make decisions grounded in numbers and data, a long-term strategy. But more often, and certainly in 2025, I found myself navigating something far more complex. That would be emotions that are so charged that even the most simple economic fact can sound like a political opinion. When a client asks, how are the current trade policies going to affect my retirement? Or is now a good time to borrow to expand my business? These aren't political questions. They're financial ones. Yet answering them honestly has become a minefield. There was a time that Republicans and Democrats might have debated policy differences, how to tax, how much to tax, when to tax, or regulate. What is too much regulation? What is too little regulation? But there was a shared understanding of the fundamentals. Everyone agreed that tariffs were taxes and that they raised prices. We agreed that central banks fight inflation, that court rulings are binding, that the rule of law is fundamental to free and fair markets. That consensus held our economic system together. But today we find that shared foundation is cracked. And when facts start to fracture, emotions rush in to fill the space, to fill the void. So in this super polarized climate, financial advisors and financial therapists face a real bind, something that I don't think they've faced before. The fiduciary duty demands that Professionals tell clients the truth. But in this political climate where even the facts are not the facts, this is where the appearance of politics, the appearance of bias steps in. It is a fact that tariffs increase costs on the citizens of the country that imposes tariffs. Now, many will argue with that. And you can look at any book written probably before 2025 on tariffs, maybe better yet, 2016. And it's a tax, and somebody's going to pay that tax. Either the importer's going to pay the tax, the consumer's going to pay the tax, or both will pay the tax. We learned this in my 9th grade economics course. Tariffs increase costs. And that's something that a planner or a therapist needs to clearly answer. They need to tell the truth around threats to the Federal Reserve's independence, which can shake confidence in the U.S. dollar. That uncertainty drives volatility. And these aren't opinions. They're economic realities. But saying them out loud, as I am doing in the moment, can trigger reactions that have nothing to do with money. A simple explanation of how interest rates affect the housing market can suddenly sound like a political statement of how increased taxes can affect profits or discretionary spending. Again, can sound like a political statement. And when we feel emotionally threatened, we stop hearing data. When those emotions are triggered for the many, many reasons that they would be triggered, everything shuts down. And basically, the brain goes offline for about 20 minutes. We can hear judgment, protective parts of us step in to cover, to protect parts of us that are feeling fear and anger and defensiveness. Protect the threat. And we've talked about this a lot in cognitive biases. The fear of being wrong, confirmation bias, it plays such a big part in wanting to seek out information that strengthens what we believe. And it's when we're met with something that challenges that belief that creates cognitive dissonance, an emotional short circuit in our system. When things start to go off the rails for all of the reasons, of what it means to be wrong. And being an Enneagram Type 1, I get that. I mean, one of the biggest fears of the 1 personality is making a mistake, is being wrong. Because the underlying, a basic fear of an Enneagram Type 1 is that they're defective. They're corrupt. And therefore being right is really important now. Enneagram Type 1s are not the only personality type that will respond that way, but they respond very deeply. So The issue here, the dilemma here for a financial professional is remain silent and you become an accomplice to the mistruths. And that's a failing of a professional's fiduciary duty to have the client's best interests at heart. And it's typically in the client's best interest. I wanted to say always, but I pause at using always. It's typically in a client's best interest for them to know truth and to know facts. And the other side of that dilemma is, well, if you speak truth, if you speak facts, you could risk losing that relationship because the polarization is that great. People often feel much safer seeking out advisors that share their same worldview. This is nothing true, but it's probably even truer today. I've seen advisors lose clients on both ends of the political spectrum, sometimes for doing nothing more than telling the truth. I recently led a breakout session at a gathering, a retreat gathering, and one gentleman, a financial planner, as we were discussing this topic, said, I turned to one client, I said, look at that wall full of certificates. That means I know something about economics, finance, and money. And yet, what you're suggesting here is that everything I've learned is false. Of course, he was triggered in that moment, and he was speaking to the choir. But I think what he was pointing out that is the cost of professional integrity can be real, and it can be painful, and it can be costly. But so is the cost of being silent. When truth becomes optional, trust dies quietly in the background. And we are seeing that a lot in our country today. Financial therapy has taught me that behind every belief about money is a deeper emotion. Fear of loss, shame, a lot of shame about not knowing enough, anger, feeling misguided, grief for a financial future that feels uncertain. And yet the political divide that we see today has made those emotions even more visible. For some clients, financial discussions have become emotional battlegrounds. Their identity, their political identity, cultural identity, even spiritual or religious identity has fused with their financial worldview. So that means when we challenge a client's belief about, say, inflation or government spending, we're not just debating economics, we're bumping into self-identity. The nervous system registers this discussion as danger. Now, this isn't with everyone, but it certainly is true. I'll shoot low and say with 20%, 25% on each end of society. So let's just put that a low of 40%. So that means when a financial professional, financial therapist might gently challenge a client's belief, things can start to go awry. You might say, well, this isn't rational. Well, we know when we look at the underlying beliefs that we have, it's very rational. And that's very human. We're wired to protect what feels like us. When facts threaten belonging, emotions take over. And many people feel belonging in political affiliations and religious affiliations. And when emotions take over, we know that financial reasoning shuts down. So in that moment, a planner's job, a financial therapist's job, isn't to argue, isn't to persuade, isn't to double down, which, the planners and therapists are human too, and they can be triggered in this called countertransference, and attempt to argue or persuade. The response is to stay calm, grounded, and above all, curious. To remember that behind every reaction is a part of someone trying to feel safe. And I emphasize that for my own benefit, because while I can talk these words, I am completely capable of not being a practitioner at certain times. So, we are, as practitioners, not immune to a bias. We have our own parts. And we have parts that want to be loyal to what we believe, that feel threatened, that feel fearful. Parts that want approval. Parts that resent being misunderstood or not heard. So it can be really hard to stay neutral, especially if you understand IFS speak, when I'm parts led. When someone questions my integrity, and being self-led doesn't mean detachment, but it does mean compassion without collapse, curiosity. So staying self-led is so important in either you, if you're a financial professional or a therapist, or in your financial professional therapist, if you're a consumer. You want them to remain calm and curious and compassionate. It's really the emotional foundation of professional ethics. If we can't manage our own reactivity, regardless who we are, we risk becoming another partisan voice. And when that happens, what we're trying to do, if you're a financial planner or financial therapy and you help a client find financial well-being, can go out the window. Clients can lose exactly what they need, which is a financial anchor. If you're listening to this as a consumer, as an investor, as a business owner, a retiree, it's worth asking yourself, how do I know whether my advisor's advice is rooted in fact or filtered through belief? And how do I know whether my own beliefs are distorting what I hear? This is a heavy lift. My suggestion is to start with curiosity. Notice where your emotional temperature is at any time in a conversation, and when does it start to rise? Does a certain topic make you tense, defensive, dismissive? Those reactions are a clue when they're coming up, and it takes a lot of work to realize when they're coming up. They're showing us where fear or identity, belonging, might be leading the conversation instead of of reason and curiosity. Some practical things you can do is you can ask your advisor how they verify information. Do they rely on multiple sources? I have podcasts in the past that you might want to take a listen to on the importance of where you get your information, the importance of listening to information on both sides of the spectrum, but preferably sources that are in the middle. And I give a whole list of various sources out there that I listen to, that I've researched, that I determine are good, fair and balanced resources. Look at tools like Ad Fontes, Media Bias Chart, or Ground News can help you see which outlets lean left, right, or center. You know, none of us are perfectly objective, but awareness is powerful. And when you can name your bias, you can begin to lose, or at least loosen the grip of bias. So when truth meets emotion, the goal isn't to win, it's to understand. Financial therapy reminds us that most financial conflicts aren't about the money, they're about meaning. They're about the emotions, they're about safety, they're about trust, they're about control. And when we can name these emotions, the conversation can shift from confrontation to connection. And this requires vulnerability, doesn't it? So for advisor, that means listening beneath the words. That means listening with the whole body, if I can put it that way. For clients, it means trusting that discomfort doesn't always signal danger. It can signal growth. And that is a challenge in itself, to know the difference of when discomfort means this is a red flag and discomfort means I'm looking at a bias here. So the real art of financial advising today isn't knowing how market works or how the rule of law works or all the technicalities of tariffs. It's knowing how people work, how the parts of us are showing up when they're scared, they're angry, and they're uncertain. And we see a lot of that. And this is where compassion becomes a financial tool. It helps us regulate, reflect, and reconnect with what's real. So there's still a middle ground in all this. It's just harder to find. And that's the space where facts can be seen through a clear emotional lens rather than distorted. It's when an advisor can say, well, here's what the data suggests. And a client can potentially have the opportunity to respond, that's hard to hear, but tell me more. Now, that's where true financial partnership, co-collaboration happens. In polarized times, the most radical thing we can do is to stay emotionally steady in the face of discomfort. That's how truth can find oxygen. That's how wisdom can grow. But when we bring emotional awareness to our stories, we can hold our feelings about politics and fear and finances with curiosity instead of judgment. Look at that showing up. I see that I'm feeling this right now. I'll work with my part in a session that's maybe getting up or upset about something that was just said or wants to be judgmental. Like, I hear you. And I get it. I get why. I get your good intention. And let's bookmark you, and I'll come visit you when we're done, because right now I need to stay in self energy um, to help facilitate this discussion. So perhaps the real challenge here isn't whether we can agree on the facts, but can we stay calm enough to see them? Can we maintain enough curiosity to understand where the other person is coming from, to be able to clearly see their parts or their wounded parts and have compassion for that, rather than one of our firefighters using a flamethrower and scorching the earth. In this environment, emotional regulation is an amazing skill. It's an amazing financial skill. It's a much, much needed skill, and one that I'm working on and spending a lot of money to work on. By spending money, that's in my personal work. Compassion is actually a financial planning tool. Curiosity is a financial planning strategy. That's kind of a new way to frame that. And if we can remember that, if we can remember the importance that compassion, curiosity, clarity plays in the financial planning process, in the financial therapy process, the importance that that plays in your professional as a consumer, we have a chance of navigating this very strange time that we're in, this very strange era, with integrity and possibly we can help restore trust in the very idea that truth still matters. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope there is a nugget or two of takeaway here. I know there was for me. So take care and look forward to being with you next time.